Good morning, everybody. We're back with you with another episode of Woo Fantasy Game Day Morning, coming at you right now live here on the YouTube channel to get everybody ready for these Week 5 lineups. Starting off a little bit hectic this morning, as you all know. Uh, I wake up this morning to the news that Patriots Broncos has been canceled or postponed, moved to Week 6 now. So we've had to get all those players out of your lineups and adjust it accordingly. And then also wake up to the news that we have yet another positive on the coaching staff for the Tennessee Titans. So now the situation with that game is kind of up in the air at the moment. We don't know exactly what to do with that. So I, along with you, am kind of traversing through things at the moment and trying to see what we can do as far as to get this situation handled and ready to go. But for the next few minutes, we're going to be here to answer your questions. Myself, hopefully, going to have the co-host Nick, the real FF Goat, along for the ride here in the next few minutes as well. But until then, flying the ship solo for the next few minutes and taking your questions to get you ready for Week 5 action. But definitely. Of course, the biggest news to start the morning outside of the game, the game postponement for the Pats Broncos, and then, of course, with the Titans Bill situation. Julio Jones, of course, is inactive for that game this week, so we have that to go by. You can be able to adjust your lineups accordingly with that because you do have the knowledge now with Julio Jones not being in that lineup. Helps create that space on your roster so you can slide in another option back behind him. But we'll jump in here real quick. Do have one question to cover so far. We got pick 2 between Drake, Andrews, Boyd. This is full point PPR, starting Kyle Allen over Josh Allen. Wow, it's a tough one. So for me, you're going to go with Andrews for sure. You're going to be starting between these 3 options, but the interesting thing between the other 2 options, you've got Tyler Boyd that's going to be he's going to be lined up mostly if I'm not mistaken, he's going to be playing opposite let's see here. Going to be opposite he was going to be playing Marlon Humphrey, which really is kind of a tough matchup for Tyler Boyd. So for me, I know Drake has been somewhat disappointing over the course of the first, few weeks of the season. And we see Chase Edmonds is starting to kind of dig into his carries a little bit and his workload in that backfield. So for me, even with that instance happening in that the Cardinals backfield, I think this week with that matchup against the Jets have actually giving up 3.9 points per game over their average. I'm going to play Drake. This is a matchup where you're going to have to play him. If you can't play Drake with confidence this week, when are you going to feel the need to do so? So for me, that's going to be Drake and Andrews in that matchup there. Let's see. Getting all this info out to you guys real quick. Of course, we were a little bit indisposed last week. I actually came down and had a pretty rough sinus infection last week, and still kind of feeling a little bit of the after effects even a week later. Some kind of still stopped up and feeling kind of crappy. So it's been a rough week, even nonetheless. But another question popping in here: Terry McLaurin, David Johnson, or Jonathan Taylor for the flex? Oh, see, for me, McLaurin with Kyle Allen as the quarterback this week, I'm kind of in a wait and see mode with McLaurin, and I think I've kind of adjusted him down with my ranks. I know we've talked about him being kind of matchup proof throughout the start of the season so far, but for me, I'm kind of in wait and see mode there. I don't know exactly how he and Kyle Allen's rapport is going to be. So I'm kind of backing off with that. But with David Johnson and Jonathan Taylor, I've got them both pretty close together in the rankings heading into the Week 5 matchups here. I've got, as it stands right now, Jonathan Taylor sneaking out just ahead of David Johnson. So for me, I'm going to go with Jonathan Taylor in that matchup. He would be my flex play. As we tend to do, we'd like to make sure that we play the running backs in those flex positions because they give you a little bit more flexibility. They're more destined to get touches heading into a matchup as opposed to the wide receivers. They're a little bit more predicated on what the quarterback can do for them. Jumping back there, Max Linscott just answered your question. He just missed it. Picked the two picks between Boyd, Drake, and Andrews. I went with Andrews and I went with Drake. Just to kind of backtrack and give you the answer to your question there. I went with Drake because primarily based on the off put that this is the week that if you're not going to start Drake with confidence this week against the Jets in that matchup, then you're going to really feel bad moving forward. So I'm going to plug in both Kenyon Drake and Mark Andrews there in your situation. Now moving forward, got Adam Arnold here with another Terry McLaurin. McLaurin, or I'm assuming that's DJ Shark, is going to be the question there. And if it's DJ Shark, I'm taking DJ Shark all day long. Between those, plug in Shark with confidence. Without any hesitation, DJ Shark. I'm a big proponent of DJ Shark. Him over McLaurin easily for me. PPR need to sit to going into the questions here. PPR need to sit 2 out of Joe Mixon, Mike Davis, Will Fuller, DJ Shark, Mostert, McKinnon. Right now, he says he's leaning towards sitting both the San Francisco running backs. I'm actually with you there. Between the other options that you have available and at your disposal, I don't know, how Mostert. The matchup is great for Mostert this week in that game for them. McKinnon is easily the sit out of the options for sure because with Mostert coming back, the backfield is going to get muddied. Don't know exactly how things are going to play out between all of these options, but I think the guys that you have out in front of them, I have more confidence in playing right now. I think Will Fuller's due for a big game this week. DJ Shark should find the end zone yet again in their matchup. Joe Mixon, yes, it's a little bit tougher matchup that they're heading into this week with the Baltimore matchup. But the thing is, with the Baltimore matchup, they actually have allowed some of the most points to pass catching running backs out of the backfield through the first 4 weeks of the season. So, and we saw Mixon was utilized more in that realm last week in week 4. So that might be a situation where you see the Bengals really kind of rely on him more as a pass catching option this week. And now we're going to get things reset up real quick. We've got the co-host finally popping into the show here.
Whew, man.
With Nick Heffley back on board finally.
So the wife and I, we run our own couple. I have a couples league that I run. And we've decided that the joint team we run is now going to be named the Sunday Morning Blowouts. Because
obviously,
because baby just had she had it literally up her chest, up her back, on her comforter, like one of those deals where Alex was just sitting right there with the baby and it just went everywhere. So of course Dad gets called in. So AKA the baby is not a fan of Dad doing Sunday morning podcasts. That's what I gather. But you know what? Like. I'm here, baby. I'm here.
So to all you out there that are listening to the podcast and don't have children yet, you're welcome for that.
I waited 39 years for this.
So you're jumping in a little bit late. I've kind of gone through a few of the questions and getting people set up for week 5 here. Of course, we're winding things down. We got 20 minutes before kickoff. So we'll let you kind of jump in here. Bills gets postponed. Won't have defense. Do I drop Jonnu or Myles Gaston or take the goose egg with the defense in that slot? What would you do in that position?
First of all, message your commissioner and make sure that they allow contingency starters because they should be doing that. As a good commissioner like I am, we're allowing contingency starters. So that should be the first thing you should do. and not have to drop anybody, or get your commissioner to add an extra position. But after you've exhausted all that, if you have a commissioner that's giving you a little pushback, it's a tough call. But I would say if you have another startable tight end ahead of Jonnu Smith, I would probably go that route. And drop Jonnu, depending on what your league starts. I'm going to assume that, like most other leagues, you're starting 2 or 3 running backs. So I want to be a little bit more robust there. So, but yes, I would not take a goose egg at any position. But you do have the luxury too of waiting a little bit and seeing how your early games go. You may not need to pick up anybody. So
yeah, that's the question I have in our big SBFFC that I've got currently. I'm feeling good about the Titans-Bills game getting played. Adam Schefter seems confident that the game's going to get played. I have Derrick Henry in a flex position right now. The position that I'm in, I have to give it the day, see how things play out, and we'll into tomorrow. And if the game gets canceled before the Saints game on Monday night, I'm going to have the availability to be able to slide in Jared Cook into that position. Am I excited about it? Not so much. But that's the card that's being dealt to me right now. And I'm having to kind of play the hand that's dealt. So that's where I'm at with that game. But I feel like the game's going to get played is what it feels like right now. It was a coach that got tested positive this morning. But they have been away from each other for, 2 weeks now? Yeah. So if the coach tests positive, there's really a good chance that nobody else on that, as far as skill position players, have caught that. So we'll jump back in here. Another question. We have half point PPR, Cooper Kupp or Justin Jackson. That seems like an easy answer for me.
Oh, I'm absolutely 100% going Cooper Kupp.
Yeah, that seems to me to be the easiest play there, Cooper Kupp.
Yeah, only because you don't exactly know the share that Justin Jackson's going to be getting here. I mean, you got Kelly back there as well. Cooper Kupp's coming off a couple of really nice games there, so I don't see any reason, at least with the uncertainty here surrounding Justin Jackson, that I would not start Cooper Kupp.
Yeah, I'm right there with
Cooper
you.
Kupp.
I was going to say that you aside from Matthew Berry have the biggest love affair with Cooper Kupp. But I think that's an easy question. You just don't know how the workload's going to shake out between Josh Kelly and Justin Jackson. Whereas I think the matchup is a little bit more tougher for Robert Woods than it is for Cooper Kupp this week in that game. I think Cooper Kupp gets into the end zone this week. So for me, Cooper Kupp's the play there. So before you jumped into the show, I was kind of touching on, you've got the Julio Jones inactive for this week. How do you feel like the rest of that team shakes out in that matchup against Carolina? We saw it last week. We saw Matt Ryan look just atrocious without Julio Jones on the field. So what do you feel with Calvin Ridley? Are you putting Alameda Zacchaeus in your DFS lineups now all of a sudden?
Great pronunciation.
Yeah, I try.
So I don't know if I necessarily want to put him in my fantasy lineups, but I tell you what, he is a really good DFS play. As cheap as he is, if you're going to load up in other areas, that's going to be a really nice guy. So I don't know necessarily, unless you've got some injury questions. I think Calvin really is going to be getting the brunt of the catches in the offense there. Probably mixed in with Zacchaeus and Gage. I think your boy Hayden Hurst is going to have a decent kind of a 50, 60-yard day with a touch, which I tried to offer him to you for a trade for backup running backs, and you wouldn't do it. Who you starting, Jimmy Graham? Really, B?
Started Jimmy Graham, who got in the end zone. He's already played this week.
How many catches he have? Two catches?
3 catches, man.
Okay.
He gave me more points than what would have been out there on the table nonetheless. So
got it. Okay.
Yeah, Jimmy Graham actually had as a borderline fringe tight end 1 this week. So him getting into the end zone was very good for my fantasy rankings on Fantasy Pros for the week.
Okay. Sure.
Shooting another question in here real quick. Got Justin Jefferson or Cooper Kupp. Misspelled the JJs.
Oh, okay.
So now, how does that change your perception here?
Steven, we'll allow a mug in here. That's a tough call, man. Justin Jefferson's had some really good weeks. The last 2 weeks, been over 100 yards the last 2 weeks there. Cooper Kupp in that scenario, man, that is a tough call. I'm almost betting you've got some other wide receiver that you could probably bench because I think both of these two are going to have some nice weeks. But if I have to pick one or the other, I think I am going to start. Do we know the weather? Do we know the weather yet? I haven't had a chance to look for Seattle. Do we know the
I
weather?
have not looked at the weather, no.
Unless it's a crazy rainstorm, I'm starting Justin Jefferson. And this is from a Cooper Kupp lover, so there's a lot more mouths to feed there in with the Rams than there is the Vikings. Jefferson is the number 2 option. Cooper Kupp, I think is the number 2, but you've got a lot of other options like Higbee and the running backs and Jefferson, Van Jefferson to be able to throw the ball to. So that's where I would go.
That's what I'm looking at real quick.
Because I think that does have. I mean, if we're seeing a monsoon in Seattle, which could happen, that would lean which direction I would go with.
I've still got Cooper ahead. I've got Cooper Kupp ahead in my rankings, so that's who I would go with. So we're split on the decision there between the two.
Ooh.
So, but yeah, I have Cooper Kupp solidly as a wide receiver too for the week, where I have Jefferson right there on that fringe of wide receiver too. So I think they're both kind of on that same timeline. Like we've mentioned, Seattle has a just putrid secondary. The matchup is there to be had. But do I trust Kirk Cousins in a primetime game on the road in Seattle as much as I do, golf in that offense against Washington and that situation that they have going on? No, I don't. I think I'm going to go Cooper Kupp.
I mean, Washington does have a really nice, front four there to be able to
they
run.
Do.
So they could be running the ball a little bit more and doing some short routes, which could lean for some Cooper Kupp action. But neither one of those guys are necessarily deep
bad options.
Robert Woods is going to hang out around the line too, and get those little end around runs like he always has at least a couple times a game. So honestly, this is tough. I mean, I would imagine you've got unless you've got just a really crazy thing going on. I think Jefferson is due the bigger yardage game with being a half-point PPR. I think Jefferson could be over 100, whereas Cooper Kupp, I think it's going to be very similar to last week. So.
Yeah. For me, it's a classic coin flip situation. I think they're both going to have good games. I think Kupp has the bigger threat to get into the end zone this week over Jefferson is my take there. Move on to the next one here. We're going to have the Matt Ryan or Jimmy G question for your QB1 in week 5. What say you?
Ooh, man. It's really tough with last week. I've had a similar decision with Matt Ryan or Big Ben this week in a league, and I have wavered back and forth. But the one thing that keeps coming back to me is that the Falcons are at home, playing against a Panthers secondary who has not shown that they've been very good in preventing the pass. So Jimmy G's got a good matchup too, but they're pinch it for running the ball. Going Matty Ice.
It's close. I think it
is close.
For me, it's definitely a close call between the two. Of course, I've did a little work on Matt Ryan over the week and for some of my stuff for rotoballer.com. With Matt Ryan, I mentioned it on Twitter as well. He's been QB 25, QB 27 each of the last 2 weeks. And that's with, Julio Jones being affected in that lineup. I think that's something to look at here. Yes, Matt Ryan, his home road splits are vastly different. He's a better player at home. Carolina's defense is not bad. It's not great, but it's not bad. Now you're going to be missing his best option on the offense. I think they're going to try to run the ball a little bit more this week. And I think it really works for both the quarterbacks. I think Ryan and Jimmy G, both are getting their, Jimmy G and the Niners are getting Mostert back. So I think that they're going to try to run the ball a little bit more, of course, with their situation at wide receiver. So right now I'm going to give the edge to Matt Ryan. I don't feel great about it, but both quarterbacks I don't really feel like are going to have great weeks. Jimmy G coming back from the injury. I think they're going to really kind of put the ball in the running back's hands a little bit more there in that matchup against Miami.
That's the big reason I would go there. Yep.
Yeah, that's how I'm looking at that. So now, other situations you've got Le'Veon Bell's back in the game for the New York Jets this week. How do you feel with Le'Veon Bell coming back in week 5 here? Do you think that they're going to give him the ball and let him run? Do you think it's still going to be that split and that love affair with Frank Gore is going to continue to ensue?
My opinion is they should give the ball to Le'Veon Bell and let him run.
But it's Adam Gase.
Adam Gase has other opinions. So I don't know why you would even have Frank Gore out there, or at the very least, why not put somebody in like Michael Pirine or Kalen Ballage and let them get some action? Because guess what? It's Frank Gore and your team sucks. So I would bet like I have Le'Veon Bell in a league, and I have some buys this week, of course, with the Lions and the Packers being on bye. I've got some buys that I've got to worry about, and now in that league as well, I've got Melvin Gordon who's on his bye all of a sudden, so I have to play him. So I think it's going to be one of those situations where you're just going to have to play him. He has a lot more upside, especially I think you're going to see another captain check down, Joe Flacco. He's going to only have time to be able to do those short little dump offs. So I think you're going to see Le'Veon Bell at least have a chance to have a nice week. So
Cleveland Browns situation there. You have between, we've got Nick Chubb. He's the latest of the injured players that have been marred and now out of the lineup. You saw a lot of people spending a lot of fab this week on D'Ernest Johnson. Kareem Hunt's nursing the groin injury. How are we viewing the Cleveland Browns running back situation this week against a very tough Indianapolis Colts defense? How confident are you in Kareem Hunt? Can he put up RB1 numbers this week?
I was just doing a FanDuel lineup with Kareem Hunt. I don't love him, but I think they're gonna, that Indy defense, they showed it. They are a very good and very stacked defense. So I don't think you're gonna have a lot of rushing. I think they're number 4 in the NFL in rush D. So I don't necessarily think that D'Ernest Johnson's going to have an amazing week. Kareem Hunt's going to be getting a lot of dump offs. I think that's where you're going to see him live. So for me this week anyway, I would definitely be going Kareem Hunt. I think he's going to be getting some pass out of the backfield, maybe getting 30 to 40 rushing yards and maybe 50 to 60 receiving with 6 to 7 catches. So good week for Kareem Hunt. I think he finds the end zone.
How do you feel about D'Ernest Johnson? Do you think he gets any play this week? Is he worth flex consideration?
I think he's worth flex consideration, although I wouldn't necessarily start D'Ernest Johnson. I've got him in our Scott Fish Bowl league with Melvin Gordon out. I am choosing in that format, especially. I'm choosing to go my boy James Washington with the Steelers over D'Ernest Johnson. Because go back and look at the stats last week. Being a PPR league, how many balls did D'Ernest Johnson catch?
Yeah. Big goose egg.
If I saw a little bit more action from him in the run game, or in the pass game, that may be a consideration there, but it looks like he's just going to be the running back and not the receiving back there. So if he's going to have a huge week if he wants to make up for that, especially facing the Colts D. So find other options if you have them. If not, he's going to get some carries. I think he's probably going to get 10 to 15 carries just like last week.
Staying in the AFC North real quick, T. Higgins, AJ Green. There's a lot of discussion between those two this week. How are you feeling with that situation in Cincinnati? Tyler Boyd, we talked about it earlier. I had a question with Tyler Boyd involved and how I'm not really feeling great with Tyler Boyd and that matchup that he has with Baltimore secondary this week. AJ Green and T. Higgins, who do you value over the other, and how are you feeling about those two moving forward?
I do like Tyler Boyd this week. I think the coverage is going to shift over to AJ Green more than it is to Tyler Boyd. So
I just think Humphrey's going to be on. I think Humphrey's going to be lined up more on Boyd this week than anybody.
We'll see. But I like T. Higgins going for it. AJ Green has done absolutely nothing for you. He's living off of AJ
name
Green
value alone.
2013, man. I had him last year in some leagues. I think he would have been a decent option here, but especially in a tough matchup against the Ravens D, they are going to be down. They are going to be throwing, so that's going to be a good thing. But with T. Higgins being the number 3 guy, I think this week especially and moving forward, T. Higgins is the guy I want. If you got AJ Green, keep your fingers crossed for 50 yards and a touchdown and deal him off like crazy.
Yeah, I've got a same situation in one league. I have both T. Higgins and AJ Green. I'm playing T. Higgins over Green this week. So I just think he's the better, more dynamic player moving forward. So just how it seems there. One last we'll touch on real quick before we dial it up. We got 10 minutes or so before kickoff. New York Giants, Dallas Cowboys. My embarrassment of a defense, Dallas Cowboys. Any I know we've talked about Slayton in store for a good game. I like Golden Tate this week, but Giants offense in general. Are you building anything DFS wise around that Giants team? Yeah, you could pop in a Daniel Jones roster with some options there.
It's a lineup I just did. I am on Slayton a little bit more than you. It sounds like you're on Tate, but yeah. I built 2 lineups in the $1 million contest on FanDuel. Promo code Woo Fantasy. Shameless plug, but
yes.
we got to make a little bit, right?
That's right.
But I think he absolutely should. I mean, Daniel Jones, that offense, you got a lot of guys in there in Dion Lewis, in Devontae Freeman, and Wayne Gallman that are better pass catchers than they are running backs. So I think you're going to have to see Daniel Jones throw the ball. So he is absolutely a streaming option. And in the other lineups I don't have Daniel Jones in, I've got Dak Prescott. So
there you go. Hey, I've got Dak Prescott. He's one of my main lineups this week. I think he's in store for another big game. Zeke Elliott, I think they're going to try to run the ball a little bit more in today's matchup, keep the defense off the field. So Elliott should be in store for a big game as well. Any other parting shots before we call it a show and get ready for some Week 5 action?
Whew, man. Good luck this week. Again, I posted it out. I'm the commissioner in 3 leagues, man. If your commissioner's not allowing for emergency and contingency starters in your league, you better be banging down the door, because if it's not affecting you this week, it's going to affect you some week. So yeah, absolutely. So kudos to those commissioners who've allowed for emergency starters. Man, right now the Titans game is a go, but Tuesday morning you can wake up and that could be a change. So kudos to those commissioners who've allowed for that.
That's true. I think that's the biggest takeaway from this week is that we need to really have a better plan in place with these contingency plans. Big leagues or not big leagues, it doesn't matter. You should have some type of plan in place. This is not your everyday normal guy gets hurt and he's out of the lineup situation. It's just how things are. If it takes a little bit more time to adjust to it, then so be it. So, but like you said, if it doesn't affect you this week, it may affect you next week. And I think that's the biggest thing to move going forward. Other thing I'll say going out the door real quick is we lost a great one this week, Eddie Van Halen. I'm the big music aficionado here on the show. The sound, this is not David Matthews Band that we're talking here. But
you got your people, I've got mine. Man.
So
I like Eddie Van Halen too.
Just
because you like Eddie Van Halen doesn't mean that you're more musically inclined.
Hey, it's just how it's been over the years. But yeah, no. If you've not listened to anything Van Halen in the recent memory, go back and pull it up, man. Listen to some old Van Halen, whether it's David Lee Roth, whether it's Sammy Hagar. That sound, his guitar riffs and everything was kind of this shaped my childhood, so to speak.
Shaped your childhood.
Wow. It's just that's the distinct memories of Van Halen songs in my head when I was a younger kid. Him passing away earlier this week it's made me kind of go back and reminisce the good old days of some nice Van Halen songs that were out there. So, and I'm not talking Hot for Teacher and stuff like that. I'm talking about, go back to the early stuff. Unchained is a big song, back in the good old days. 5150 from the Sammy Hagar years. Another great song. If you don't know what I'm talking about, go pull it up. But go do your due diligence. Go back and listen to some good music. But other than that, Week 5, hopefully you're avoiding COVID stuff this week. But if not, you've dodged the landmine this week. You may not do it next week. But rotoballer.com, promo code WooFantasy. Go and plug that in for the promo code on the best premium content on the web. We got you covered there, whether it's DFS information, whether at season long, anything, Dynasty, we got you covered there. Promo code WooFantasy at rotoballer.com. As you mentioned, WooFantasy on FanDuel gets you that extra money on your first deposit. So definitely do that. But until then, we'll talk to you next time for another episode of WooFantasy. We'll get you ready to go for Week 6 next week as well. So be on the lookout for all that content there. And until then, good luck and good W's.